Hi there, movie buffs, and welcome to the second episode of the Italian-American trilogy. Last time we saw Francis Ford Coppola, he had just helmed the project that would forever change the course of his career. This second episode focuses on One from the Heart's aftermath, and how the director carried on during a particularly challenging decade. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and join me as I take you through the movies that Francis Ford Coppola made during the 1980s. Less than a year after the One from the Heart debacle, Coppola would direct not one, but two movies, both adaptations of S.E. Hinton's novels. The first one, The Outsiders, fell on his lap. He was persuaded to take on the project after a school librarian wrote to him on behalf of the school students about adapting the novel. For a director in need of a hit, the letter was all the encouragement he needed. It was the opportunity to direct a movie for which there was already an inbuilt audience. The Outsiders is set in a small American town during the 1960s. It features the working-class greasers, led by Ponyboy Curtis, played by C. Thomas Howell, Soda Pop, played by Rob Lowe, and Derry, played by Patrick Swayze, who find themselves in constant conflict with the wealthier Sox, led by Bob Sheldon, played by Leif Garrett, and Randy Anderson, played by Darren Dalton. The tensions between the two groups escalates, resulting in frequent violent clashes. One night, after a confrontation at a drive-in movie, Ponyboy and his friend Johnny Cade, Ralph Macchio, are attacked by Bob and other Sox. The event escalates and results in a homicide, prompting Ponyboy and Johnny to go on the run. They seek refuge with their fellow greasers, including Dallas Winston, played by Matt Dillon, Two-Bit Matthews, played by Emilio Estevez, and Steve Randall, played by Tom Cruise. As the story unfolds, the greasers and the Sox navigate their challenging lives, with each group facing particularly different challenges, such as parental neglect, poverty, and social prejudice. On paper, and I guess on the screen as well, The Outsiders was the least Coppola movie the director had made to date. Conventional, straightforward, with a linear storytelling. But the fact is, even when helming a very simple project, the man responsible for The Godfather always brought some of his magic and style. For example, the sequence featuring Pony and Johnny, two characters united by their passion for Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind, really takes on the look and cinematography of the 1939 movie adaptation. The title also shared another trait with the rest of Coppola's filmography, as it worked as a showcase platform for young talent. The film's young cast included C. Thomas Howell, Rob Lowe, Daniel San himself, Ralph Macchio, Patrick Swayze, and of course Tom Cruise. My thoughts on The Outsiders? Good, but not great. The conflict between the greasers and the Sox, while central to the story, is presented in a somewhat simplistic manner. The underlying socioeconomic tensions could have been explored with more depth, providing a richer context for the characters' actions and motivations. The director's cut, released in 2005, mitigates this problem, but doesn't solve it completely. That said, The Outsiders remains a compelling and enduring portrayal of youthful camaraderie, and a solid analysis on the challenges of growing up, making it a classic in the coming-of-age genre. Coppola's second adaptation of an S.E. Hinton novel is far more in line with the director's nature. Influenced by the French New Wave, Rumblefish is more than just a companion to The Outsiders. It's a movie the director could have easily opted to make, regardless of his financial situation. The black and white cinematography, the time-lapse photography, and the main themes around family are just some of the aspects that make this title feel as comfortable as old shoes to Coppola. Rumblefish invites us into the gritty and enigmatic world of Rusty James, played by Matt Dillon, a young and restless teenager living in a rundown urban landscape. struggling to find his identity and escape the shadows of his older brother, Motorcycle Boy, a former local legend turned elusive wanderer, played by Mickey Rourke, Rusty James becomes entangled in a series of events that lead him to question his choices and aspirations. Set against the backdrop of empty streets, dimly lit alleys, and seedy bars, the film follows Rusty James's reckless pursuit of significance and purpose. As he navigates the tumultuous terrain of adolescence, he grapples with the expectations placed upon him by his peers, his family, and his own perception of his brother's mythical reputation. Rusty James's world is colored by his relationships with those around him, including his girlfriend Patty, played by Diane Lane, his loyal friend Smokey, played by Nicolas Cage, and the alluring Cassandra. These connections mirror the complexities of his desires and insecurities, ultimately leading him down a path of self-discovery and confrontation with his brother's legacy. Whereas The Outsiders was a hit, grossing $33.7 million, or over 3 times the movie's budget, everything both Coppola and the studio behind the picture could hope for, Rumblefish was a box office disaster, grossing only $2.5 million domestically on a $10 million budget. When we consider the two opposing forces, on one hand, the audience's indifference towards the title, and on the other, the warm critical reception the movie received upon its release and in the years after, we can't help but wonder who was right and who was wrong. In my opinion, I believe audiences were wrong about Rumblefish. The title is a mesmerizing journey into the tumultuous world of adolescence, rebellion, and self-discovery. Through its unique style, evocative performances, and thematic depth, the movie captures the essence of youth's restless pursuit of identity and purpose. Rusty James's struggle resonates with audiences as they reflect on their own coming-of-age experiences and the universal quest for meaning in an uncertain world. But I guess it was just too dark and gritty for the happy-go-lucky audiences of the 1980s. As 1983 came to a close, Francis Ford Coppola, with a hit and a flop under his belt, wasn't out of the woods yet. Hollywood, 1974. Producer Robert Evans was on top of the world. As head of production for Paramount, he had supervised one of the most successful studio runs in history. At the 1975 Academy Awards, the studio had 3 titles in the run for Best Picture: Chinatown, which Evans had produced, and 2 Coppola-directed movies, The Conversation and The Godfather Part 2. Coppola ended up winning big that night, going home with 3 statuettes and sharing the Best Adapted Screenplay victory with Mario Puzo. Fast forward to 10 years later. Evans, along with Coppola and Puzo, was no longer a major player in Hollywood, but he was dead set on staging his comeback. The Mafia, murders, weapon arms dealers, drugs, and Las Vegas casinos. You could easily think I'm talking about Martin Scorsese's Casino, but the reality is, I'm simply describing what went on in the production of Francis Coppola's 1984 title, The Cotton Club. Since Robert Evans had purchased the rights to James Haskins' novel, The Cotton Club, in 1980, the producer had struggled to find financing and gather a creative team to bring his vision to life. Robert Evans briefly considered directing the picture himself, and asked Francis Ford Coppola and William Kennedy to jump and rewrite the original script penned by Mario Puzo. The producers and stars, namely Richard Gere, weren't happy with what Puzo had produced. Even as a screenwriter, Coppola had a vision for the project that was far different from Robert Evans's. To Evans, the movie would need to be ambitious, big, and violent. Basically, another Godfather. Coppola, on the other hand, wanted a more balanced and artistic combination, a glamorous and stylized ode to a bygone era, blending elements of crime drama, romance, and music spectacle. After several rewrites, which resulted in the director developing a deep infatuation with the source material and constant appeals from the iconic producer, Coppola relented and took on the directorial duties. But despite having final cut, the director couldn't save the movie, and the end product released in December 1984, was a convoluted mess. Narratively disjointed, with some impressive musical acts filling in the gaps. Set in the vibrant Harlem during the 1930s, the Cotton Club focuses on the intricate lives of its characters, intertwined with the iconic jazz venue. At the center of this tumultuous tale are two friends navigating the complexities of show business, organized crime, and the racial tensions of the era. Dixie Dwyer, played by Richard Gere, is a talented musician whose roots in a predominantly black neighborhood led him to perform in black-owned nightclubs. His close relationship with Sandman Williams, played by Gregory Hines, a gifted black dancer, underscores the racial dynamics of the time. As they both strive for success in the entertainment industry, Dixie faces a moral crossroad when he accepts assistance from the mafia to propel his career forward. Complicated matters is Dixie's secret affair with Vera Cicero, played by Diane Lane, the appealing girlfriend of the notorious gangster Dutch Schultz, played by James Remar. To say the movie had a complicated production process is an understatement. Involved in the financing stage were Las Vegas casino owners Edward and Fred Dumani, businessman Victor El Sayad, Arab arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi, and vaudeville promoter Roy Radin, who was murdered in May 1983. Producer Rob Evans was a key suspect in the murder, dubbed by the press as the Cotton Club trial, but would later be cleared of any involvement. The film was a commercial failure, grossing just under $26 million against a $58 million budget. Despite this, the movie earned 2 Golden Globe nominations in the Best Picture Drama and Best Director categories. The main reason for the title's demise? Too many cooks favoring their own input. But despite the movie's obvious shortfalls, it was a triumph for Coppola. The indebted director could have easily given in and directed another Godfather movie as Robert Evans intended. Instead, he turned the film into a celebration of 1930s jazz music, a vision that became obvious with the recut release of The Cotton Club titled The Cotton Club Encore, which premiered in 2019. My thoughts on The Cotton Club? As a period piece, the movie works. The details, production value, and some of the musical sequences must be singled out as some of the greatest achievements in Coppola's career. Acting-wise, the movie is solid with Gere, actors Bob Hoskins, and even Fred Gwynne delivering the goods. As for the two different versions, the 1984 version is okay, the 2019 recut is very good. Restoring the secondary plot and fleshing out Gregory Hines' character was a smart move. But the best is really everything that happened in the background, whilst the cameras weren't rolling. Someone should make a movie or a documentary about it. Even when limited by his financial situation, Coppola stayed true to his entrepreneurial roots. Since he couldn't gamble with personal creative endeavors, he was more than happy to support those who could through his studio, American Zoetrope. The production house was responsible for backing ambitious and innovative projects such as Wim Wenders' Hammett and Paul Schrader's Mishima. As for Coppola, there were no signs of his situation improving, but the man who brought us Apocalypse Now wasn't willing to give up without a fight, as his next project would prove. George Lucas was approached by Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who were running Disney at the time, wanting to create a new attraction for their Disney theme parks starring Michael Jackson. Lucas offered the directorial duties to Francis Ford Coppola. But even when accepting a paycheck gig, Coppola brought his own style and flair. Soon enough, the 17-minute video extravaganza contained allusions to Greek mythology, state-of-the-art visuals, and a ballooning budget of $23 million, making Captain EO, the title, the most expensive movie ever produced on a per-minute basis. The title would end up costing $1.3 million per minute. Now, in the middle of the 1980s, Coppola had proved to himself and the industry he could bounce back faster than he fell. But with 2 flops, a deep pocket-funded project and only 1 minor hit, his future as a filmmaker was anything but certain. So join me in the next and last episode for this journey's epic conclusion, where I cover the next stage of director Francis Ford Coppola's career. Once again, thanks for watching.